Where's Oscar?
He's with that HPE rep. But let's grab some lunch. Uh-oh, what happened?
I was just in the stairwell because I use the elevator to go one floor up when the women's restrooms are uneven floors. But whatever, I run into Todd and he says, "Hey, champ, is Oscar in the office?" But, I don't know. Then he says, "Turns out we're gonna need another 500 terabytes for a new analytics app. And we need always on and always fast."
He calls you champ.
He calls everyone champ.
He never calls me champ.
Anyway, I'm also thinking of racking and stacking a new array, figure out volumes, rate groups, replications, gah! But then he must have seen the look on my face because he says, "Don't worry, they just put it on the cloud." Thanks, sport. We need Oscar.
Yes, we do. So wait till you hear this. I'm in the 6th floor server room, and Sally pokes her head in and says, "Could you tell Oscar I have an online database that needs to be mission critical and no disruptions? Oh, and by the weekend." I said, "I'll see if there's a window for a software upgrade. There'll be downtime, right?" And you know what she says? "Upgrades are always invisible on the cloud. Just put it on the cloud."
Oh, come on. I love the cloud. You love the cloud. He loves the cloud. But our data is heavy.
Massive.
Unwieldy.
Ponderous.
Exactly. And mission critical. No downtime. How is that reasonable? Or even possible?
It's not. Look at this. Here's Pat from product. We need to allow a new shopping feature to access our data with no latency. Maybe during your lunch hour.
Heart emoji.
And flexi biceps. I never liked him.
Where the heck are we going to deploy that?
Well, you know what Oscar would say?
Check the headroom spreadsheet.
Oscar.
Don't have to do that anymore.
HPE GreenLake for storage. Nice.
We did it!
I'm Oscar.
Did you allocate for that new app feature, champ?
It was automatic. Any downtime for the software upgrade, Sport?
None. It's done.
Woo!
Nice shot.
He's Oscar.
Hello everyone, I am Varnika Gupta from YourStory, and today I will be moderating a roundtable where we are going to discuss about how most of the startups are going to be cloud first and what the modern cloud experience will look like by 2025. Titled InvesTech Dialogues, Defining the Right Cloud Mix for Startups, this roundtable is being hosted by HPE and Intel in association with YourStory. Now, before we start, I'd like to set some context. According to a recent survey by Gartner, 48% of companies investing in technologies say that they are looking to invest in cloud computing also. And by now, I think we're all aware of the benefits of cloud and how popular it is becoming. Cloud-based technologies are also the hottest areas of venture capital. Investors see it as a rapidly growing sector, one which will have lots of opportunities and long-term potential for growth. At the same time, there are some challenges also. There are startups who are wondering, should they be moving from IT to the cloud completely, or should they be doing it in parts, or should they be doing it at all? So there are lots of questions and lots of details to know. To break it down for us, we've brought together some of the smartest minds from the VC and technology ecosystem. Please welcome Kailash Nath, AVP Seed Investments, Chirate Ventures, Sonal Saldana, Vice President, 314 Capital, Arpit Agarwal, Director, Bloom Ventures, Vamsi Krishna Reddy, Partner at Kalari Capital, and Swapna Gupta, Director at Qualcomm Ventures. From the technology ecosystem, we have Ranganath Sadashiva, CTO at HPE. Thank you all of you for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you with us, and I'm sure all of you are looking forward to the conversation. So let's just dive right into the questions. My first question today is for all the VCs here. If you can tell me, in last 2 years of startup investing landscape, what are the most important changes and developments that you've noticed?
The thing that has been top of mind for people over the last year with COVID has been a very rapid acceleration of digitization. And since we're talking about cloud, has been really high in terms of the mind share of cloud, and the cloud transformation has been among the most talked about things in the last year. We've seen this as for example, the valuation boost that companies have gotten over the last year. Bessemer has this index called the BVP Cloud Index, and we've seen how the cloud index outperformed every other index out there, the Nasdaq and so on. And despite the Nasdaq having such a stellar year, the BVP Cloud Index has had a much better performance over the last 12, 15 months or so. And that's testament to the role that cloud is expected to play over the next coming few decades. So I think that's one big area where there's been a shift in terms of development and changes. The other one, as a result of that, obviously startups being formed in those categories because there's a validation of market size and demand. And we're also seeing that there's no business that's not a software business, and literally the TAM for software is every industry, every category, and that's forced a shift in how people think about who is a potential customer for them, whether it's an SMB or mid-market or enterprise. And as a result, I think the role of software is being redefined as we speak.
Thank you, Sonal. Vamsi, would you like to add to some of the developments and changes that you've noticed in the last 2 years?
Thanks, Varnika. And I think the things which I have seen, again, I wouldn't really call it the last 2 years. I think it's more like last 1 year, because we got a 1 year complete wash off, right? But I think the whole growth has accelerated since then, pre-pandemic era, right? So I think what we are really seeing is, what has happened in the last 5 to 6 months in terms of the number of companies that have become unicorns and the kind of inflows that are happening from a capital perspective. I think it's creating a lot of entrepreneurs, right? Because I think these are the people who have been working with these companies for the past 5, 6 years and who have seen the growth with these companies, which have gone to become the unicorns. I think the next set of leaders or entrepreneurs are coming from these companies, right? So because they are feeding the next level of the ecosystem. So I think there's a lot of activity that is happening in terms of actually entrepreneurship, which is becoming a very lucrative option for a lot of people who have been in this space and who worked with this companies or just coming out of the college. And I think that has accelerated a lot in the last 1 year. Especially since I think people feel much more stable with the economy and also the growth that is kind of looking very, very solid right now, right? So I think that's one of the reasons why people are actually jumping into entrepreneurship. So, coming back to what you can really do today's date versus 2 years ago, I think the access to capital has become much more easier at a very, very early stage, right? So there's this tremendous amounts of opportunities for an entrepreneur trying to kind of get there and get access to capital, which is very early stage capital, but at least it gets you going in terms of putting together a strategy for creating an MVP and going to market. So I think that has really, really accelerated the time to kind of build a product as the markets has been accelerated due to actually not just with what is happening, but also because of the services that have come on the cloud, which actually kind of help you get to the customer, get to the enterprises, get to whatever services you need to kind of build a product and the market in a very fast way, right? So I think those activities have really, really taken off in the post-COVID era, especially because as we are seeing, everything is digitized, so you don't really need to kind of go meet or get anything done. So I think everything is available on the cloud as a service for you to kind of pick up and put together a product and go to market. So I think that we are seeing that every company that's coming up to us to talk to us is able to kind of get these products out there through the cloud within a short period of time and kind of show initial early traction and kind of raise capital. So everything is happening pretty much from a cloud perspective. So I think those are things which we are seeing. So I think it's been a great year in terms of just how entrepreneurship has taken up and the scale that is being able to achieve through all the infrastructure services which are available through cloud.
Sure, thank you. Swapna, if I can ask you, when it comes to digital transformation, what are some of the top challenges that you hear from your portfolio startups?
So I think I absolutely concur with Sonal and Vamsi, right? The world has changed and shift changed, right? In some sense that everybody is sort of looking at buying products made in India, and Indian products are now being made for global markets. And I'm sort of building up to what are the challenges we see with from our portfolio. So of course, with Freshworks, I think now there is established that India can sort of build for global markets, and now most of our companies are able to scale and iterate quickly in India and go to global markets. But I think the biggest challenge they are facing today, and most of our companies happen to be building from India for global markets, is uh, the ability to understand in these large enterprises is still lower, because startups are working at a speed of 100 kilometers per hour, while these enterprises are still moving at 20 to 30 kilometers per hour, right? So it feels they're still run by dinosaurs, and ability to adopt to technology is still lower versus startups. So I agree there is a digital transformation, but I would say startups are adopting much faster than these large enterprises who are end customers at the end of the day. So that's one significant challenge, where ideally you would see the product is so good that you should be growing at 3 to 4x, but still the time to convert, the time to revenue is slightly lower. Of course, people are signing up, but time to adopt that technology and get it in-house is still slightly longer, right? So I think that would be one significant challenge where a lot of work is happening, and now enterprises have also sort of gotten into this whole bandwagon, shifting towards more agile medium. But I would say that's number one challenge today.
Sure. Building further on digital transformation, Mr. Ranganath, if you can tell us that, HPE, at HPE, you're providing the right mix where, there's enough that you can move to the cloud also, and you can stay on premise at the same time. What can you tell us more about this, and how does this give you a leverage versus your competitors who are now moving into everything as a service?
Hey, Varnika, firstly, great to be here, and great to listen to what's happening in general around the startup ecosystem. And most of what has been said is something that resonates with us. If you were to look at digital transformation, it's not a new term. It's a term that is close to a decade plus now. It's in its third or fourth version of digital transformation that we're speaking of. But thanks to COVID and post-pandemic kind of responses, people started accelerating their DX journeys. So in that context, I think the entire contribution for digitizing their products, services, or solutions became very, very important. It became an imperative. IT, which was an associate, literally became core to all businesses. It led to an 5x, 6x kind of digital adoption. There are several numbers to it, but we all know it is greater than what it was in the last decade or so. So there is a significant rate of change, which you feel if it is very high, but looking ahead, I feel it's still the slowest. So, it is going to be a change that we'll start incorporating, and we'll keep, kind of delving at it. The biggest plus has been technologies helping solve real world problems today. And, we are creating so many new solutions, which is very important for all of us to understand. From an HPE context, our purpose, we say, is to advance the way people live and work, right? Everything that we kind of contribute from a technology perspective should have an end objective. So it is in that gambit, we see a significant amount of opportunity. I also feel we are at a cusp of a trifecta that way, right? Where you're talking of a lot of digital growth that will come our way, a lot of digital demand that will come our way. There is going to be technology, and you have to build a lot of efficiency around it, right? So, we all spoke about how cloud has been a game changer in the way people have started using technology. Right? It is kind of proliferated every type of usage today. And, it is time for us to kind of look at how cloud technologies can be done with a new flavor, can be done with betterment, in terms of whatever know-how that we have had. But clearly change the way we looked at IT, from in the way it got delivered. You were paying per use, you were consuming as you would want, you weren't managing your IT infrastructure. Several benefits that essentially liberated a lot of our customers from the capital purchases, capital expenditures. They became more nimble. When you talk of a startup organization, it's an idea that becomes an economy later, right? So there is speed, they're focusing on what they really need to do. Those were the kind of things that came into play. But as it's grown, what we are seeing as a company which has been in IT for about 80 years now, we saw the utopian solution that people thought had a little bit of concerns, right? Whether it was the kind of performance issues that people wanted, or when they scaled, could they get the right kind of scaling, especially in the context of data security, cost compliance, connectivity, and stuff like that. So this is where it becomes very important for us to bring all of those things together. What we are seeing in the marketplace is that only 30% of whatever organizations have, especially the enterprises, which are essentially cloud native or cloud enabled, 70% of applications are still not cloud enabled. So there is that opportunity. We felt that we can enhance upon that cloud experience and deliver something that's beyond. So that context, ours, HPE is moving about, rather is going about with an as a service model, right? What we are doing there is we are hooking on to the cloud experience. It's like, if I want to go and procure something, I perhaps will take a bag and run. But if I ask my son, perhaps he will just go and shop and get things there. That's the experience that I'm talking about. So we are focused on how we can enhance this experience because you need to have that cloud kind of experience for sure, because it gives you all the good things of agility, cost savings. But if I can bring that experience across to every aspect of life, bring that cloud-like ability onto your doorsteps to all the apps and data, I think that's a significant way of improving the cloud experience that people had, which is almost a decade ago, as I said. And that's where we are focused on, Varnika.
So Arpit, if I can ask you, in addition to the cloud, what other technologies do you think startups should be investing in at this point?
Anika, the technology landscape is quite vibrant and very dynamic. There are so many different things that startups are acquiring these days, and they really make an impact. Of course, when I say AI and ML, this will sound like cliche, but people haven't even started discovering what AI can do for their businesses beyond the marketing, the gimmicks of the marketing. Then there is blockchain, which I'm personally very excited about. On the hardware side, there is miniaturization of all kinds. And then there is edge computing, which is super exciting because these small devices can really do a lot of important loads of IoT. So, I mean, I can go on and on. Electric vehicles come top of my mind. There is something called battery management software system, which is a fantastic piece of hardware by itself. Has so many algorithms. There is autonomy that you can put into your vehicles, which can make things go round and round into, on their own. All of us have seen how Tesla cars drive by themselves and how Waymo taxis work without drivers. So yeah, as from a startup perspective, there's never been, there will never be a better time than what it is today. At the same time, there was never a better day than it is today. So it's an ongoing and evolving ecosystem and landscape.
Sure, it's indeed a better day today.
So Varnika, being a technology investor, I would love to chime on this one.
Yeah.
Especially with Qualcomm, I thought it's important to just talk about it. I think if you look at tech stocks today, I think you have never seen the stocks do the way they are, right? And the market is speaking for it. So also what is really changed in the ecosystem, and I've been part of this ecosystem for more than a decade now, is it's become more collaborative than competitive. And that's why the technology landscape has clearly changed, where people are not building everything in-house. And now you can actually ride on 10 different things to build your own sort of.
And even enterprises, are building their own, not building everything on their own. They're working very simple software, which are made by third parties, even open source.
So yeah, so there is so much there to do. And today, when you're starting, for example, think of starting up, I don't need to really worry about that. How will I pull it off? Because now I have 10 different things at my disposal, right? So for example, as maybe a B2C company, I don't worry about infrastructure because infrastructure is here, network is here. So I can actually build high bandwidth capabilities, be it a video app, right? Similarly, if I'm a B2B enterprise customer, there's so much happening on SaaS offering. There is so much happening on API from Twilio to everything that I can pull any API in the world and build a brilliant enterprise offering, right? Similarly, if I'm doing something in the virtual world, with the pandemic, all of us are in a virtual world. But with XR, there is so much at offering that everybody can be in an immersive experience and still feel the same way, right? So I think that technology-wise, I think everything is there. It's like palette of colors. Now you just pick and choose and sort of build the right product and platform for the universe.
Yeah, Varnika, what we see, I could just add, in terms of whatever Swapna said and Arpit said, we see three pillars, and we called this out about 5 or 6 years ago. We said there's going to be a lot of edge centricity. There's going to be a growing number of devices, and you'll create an experience at the edge. And that experience carries forward with cloud and cloud-based technologies. And the third pillar being data and data centricity. We said everything around data will contribute to every given business. And I think whatever you guys just said essentially maps onto these three fundamentals, where we are seeing a very, very significant growth and a greater sense of acceleration.
Sure. Thank you for your inputs, Mr. Ranganath. Kailash, if I can ask you that, we feel that, that investors are in that privileged positions where they can influence certain decisions, positive ones, yes. But so have you ever, influenced any policy, any technology related decision for one of your portfolio startups?
Yes. In fact, we and from a seed perspective, right? I think you're in a privilege, like you rightly said, a position where you are able to be an advisor to a company more than just a capital provider. And this is true for not just technology, but also business decisions. And I think the gray line between what technologies and what is businesses is becoming, there's a big overlap now. Because like that the panelists said, I think tech is becoming an enabler for large-scale disruption across industries. So yes, we have been in a position where we have had the chance to help the founders think through what is the right kind of the target user segmentation that they should go after based on the evolution of the product. For example, it's true of companies both in the consumer tech as well as in the SaaS, right? As the product evolves, the problem that you're solving for your end customers also evolves, and hence who your end customer should be is different across your entire entire product journey itself. It's dependent on your pricing strategy. It's depending on the location that you're based in. I mean, now location is sort of universal. You can target the end users in the western part of the globe as well. But the positioning itself, or rather the size at which you are, and what is the resource bandwidth you have, determines what kind of users you ultimately address and target, right? So these decisions are something that we're able to sit together in a boardroom and think aloud and try to address. We might not go nitpick on everyday, day-to-day technology decisions, but things which affect the overall strategy of the company or the direction of the company, I think that's something that we're able to coach the companies that we work closely with, also help them hire the right resources to help them be in line with what the plan is and implement that on the ground. So that's something that I think early stage investment gives you the privilege, but also gives a responsibility to bring together that support system beyond just the capital to ensure that the companies that you're working with also get to that level of success.
Thank you, Kailash. Mr. Ranganath, my next question would be to you. What can you tell us about the GreenLake platform? What kind of advantages can startups look at, and how can they get started at it?
Yeah, I mean, like Kailash was mentioning, there has been a definite evolution of the startup ecosystem today. And when you're talking of that, cloud has been the hub for all kinds of innovation today. If you look at the innovations that are happening now, or if it's going to happen tomorrow as well, I'm sure they're going to the cloud to get that innovation to happen. But there is another phenomena that is taking shape. And as you see these organizations really grow, they are slowly but steadily growing from unicorns into an enterprise, right? So when you're looking at enterprises, they have a different kind of a problem today. They are trying to get to the cloud, and and they're trying to get into what we are now defining as a hybrid world. So hybrid essentially means that within your IT geography, you're able to use all the resources that are there, whether it is cloud, whether it is multi-cloud, whether it's on-prem or the edge, right? The entire geography, IT real estate is being utilized. And I think now the world is going hybrid. There's no doubts about it. Even the CEO of AWS has to say that the world is going to be hybrid. To that extent, I think it's kind of proven. So within that model and holding on to that cloud experience, we came out with an as a service kind of an offering. What does that mean? That means that whatever IT resourcing that you would need is delivered to you as a service, but it is not the typical public cloud. It is a cloud that's created for you. You could call it a private cloud. It's a cloud that comes to you. And all the dynamics of cloud really are something that this as a service model incorporates, whether it is consumption, whether it is payment, whether it is management, whether it is the resourcing that you would want. So it is, as I said earlier, right, an enhancement of the cloud experience, an enhancement or a new way of delivering the cloud experience to organizations. So that, in a nutshell, is what GreenLake is. We launched GreenLake a couple of years back, and since then, we are seeing a growing adoption of as a service today, especially when organizations are growing from smaller startup organizations to bigger unicorns and bigger enterprises. The question they might want to answer is, how do I live in this hybrid world? How do I set up my IT infrastructure for a hybrid strategy? So if you're looking at those kind of paradigms, and as a service really fits in very, very well. It's an unbiased way of looking at which cloud you would want. It's an unconstrained way of looking at whatever resources that you would need, right? Typically, you go to a service provider, there's a stack of products and solutions that are available. If you want anything other than that, and now I hear many of the organizations wanting to have best of breed capabilities. I want something from here. We were just speaking about it, right? We all are in that gig economy. So we want to get the best of breeds and then you can construct the stack for yourself. So, this is that way, a more liberalized way. Obviously, things and tenets that are very important in certain industries, which is about data, about governance, compliance, speed, etc., are all taken care of. So, it is the new world of as a service, a great sense of adoption that's happening. And that's what we are very, very kicked to kind of speak to startup and venture capitalists like all in the panel today.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Vamsi, my next question would be to you. What as a VC, what is going to be your top priority when investing in startups in the coming year in 2022 and beyond? And are there, is there something that the startups out there should know to how to woo you so that you're on their side? Any tips and tricks for them?
I think, I think they don't need to woo us. I think it's the other way around. I think post-COVID, it has become a different landscape altogether. So we are actually going after founders and entrepreneurs with great ideas and great execution capabilities. So I think it's never a question of them wooing us. But I think the fundamentals have not changed. I think it's just at least there seems to be some kind of an exuberance, irrational, I would say. But I think that is what we are seeing. But I feel the fundamentals are something which we focus on at Kalari to make sure that, at least the basics are in place. So although certain things might have changed, I think we look for founders who really understand how to scale it at a larger level, how they look at the unit economics, how the models work, and all those things remain fundamental to the businesses which we look at. So I don't think there's any major shift in that perspective. I think one of the major shifts, which at least I have seen personally, is that I think now we are scouting for more founders, I would say, rather than companies and products. So I think we're trying to see how we can actually look at these ideas at a very early stage, how we actually can influence certain decisions at an early stage when we are coming in to invest. I think so that has been a little bit of a shift, I would say, in terms of how we look at the companies right now. I think it's more people driven than completely product driven. So I think we are definitely from that aspect a little bit different right now compared to what it used to be. Of course, I think, again, with the changing landscape of the entrepreneurial ecosystem itself, I feel that, the traditional methods of evaluation of companies have changed. So I think it's all about finding people who are actually able to kind of think and dream big is, I think, where the fundamentals lie, basically, while making sure that a model is there which can be worked eventually.
Sure. So Sonal, would you like to add to that? Who are you scouting for? Who are you going after?
Yeah, I think if Varnika, if you ask any investor that question, they'll say ambitious founders, large markets, clear value proposition, and in some cases, if there's a convenient way to figure out whether or not that team can execute, that's pretty much the entire package, right? As an early stage investor, in many cases, those are the variables you're working with. There may or may not be something to see as a live product, may or may not have customers for you to speak to. But these are all signals that over the years, people have learned to read much better and understand what are good proxies for likely outcomes. And that's true of both sides, whether these are investors or even founders deciding what to build, which markets to operate in, why, or what is the most ambitious version of the plan that they're going after. So that level of awareness is crept in on both sides, and therefore there's less guesswork involved overall. And in most cases, and in many cases, if you've seen rounds where there's a lot of interest from investors, those are ones which are very clear for everyone to see that there's a big opportunity at the intersection of all of these variables. So we continue to look, and I think the answer is consistent in that sense. But we are looking to work with high quality teams that have clarity of and a line of sight on what they're building more than anything else. And I think the rest is those other details fall in place if you know what you're aiming at first of all. So that level of clarity is what drives decision making, at least for us.
Thank you. So, Arpit, what is driving your decision making? What are the kind of companies that you would be looking to invest in the coming years?
There has been an explosion of great quality entrepreneurs. Across the board, all the investor friends here will testify that very good quality companies are being created. Very good quality people are starting up. So there's probably never been a better time. Of course, a lot more unicorns are being created. So it's an ecosystem which has become far more dynamic than it was, let's say, even 2 years back. So that is very exciting, which means every sector is very exciting. What personally is very close to my heart is electric vehicles. I have invested a lot of time in understanding that space, and there has been very good entrepreneurs have come our way, and we have chosen to invest into a couple of them. And that, I think, is a very important sector for India, and it is at the right inflection point. Over the next 2 years, this will take off in a big way. So yeah, that's something which is keeping me personally very excited. Apart from that, the secular themes in India are fintech. It is never old. You can never do enough of fintech. And I think healthcare is one thing which is just picking up in a big way.
Yeah, so electric, fintech, and healthcare.
Yeah.
Holy Trinity. Mr. Rangnath, my question to you would be, how has the customer impact for GreenLake been so far, and what, according to you, should be the top technologies other than that startups should be investing in?
Plethora of options that way to invest in. To me, I think technology has always played along. It's the idea that matters. It's the impact that an idea can create. It's what it can really solve as a problem that becomes very, very important. Having said that, whatever Arpit mentioned, apart from the battery part of it, in which HP doesn't have a role to play, I think if you're talking of any other kind of technologies that are related from an IT stack, we are seeing a lot of traction happen. As I said, the three important aspects are something that's related to edge for us, in which we are trying to really look at what can create an experience. We talk about physical and digital worlds to merge, or physical and non-physical entities to merge. In those areas, there's a lot of things happening. So we are at the forefront of delivering a different kind of experience there. Some of the examples for us are in very unlikely places where we have worked and incorporated technology. In a football stadium, right? How do you increase the experience of a fan in Tottenham football stadium? Is an example where you're talking about experience. And making everything cloud-like is very important. And when you say cloud-like, it is really large in the context of whatever you can do. So it will keep evolving, and we will keep working around it. And data and building data efficiencies is another area where a lot of AI-based activities currently happening. We are looking at one, data, and how do you handle data, because it's going to grow. It's going to become voluminous. It's going to have an impact on every given organization today. So how do you handle that data very, very efficiently? So you'll not be surprised, right, when I say I'm going to generate 175 zettabytes of storage in the next 2 years. Everyone knows that. But the point is, how much of that can be really used for insights? And in the startup world, again, they're solving a single problem, where when it comes to enterprises, it all has to be integrated. It has to hit scale, right? Then is when we are talking of, somebody spoke about autonomous decisions and stuff like that. It's essentially a value chain that needs to get created. So we are behind that, and that is where we create a lot of that. We are seeing a lot of inventions, a lot of IP that we are developing, working on, acquiring. All of that is happening around it. In all of this, we have taken that as a service approach, which essentially brings each one of your workloads in a way and fashion that you would really want to consume. And in the price dynamics, on the security dynamics, and the usage dynamics that you would really want. So we feel that's going to create that personalized requirements. And everyone talks of a lot of vertical stacks getting developed. People are talking of hyper personalization and stuff like that. That's true for IT as well. People would want to have their IT that creates a differentiator, especially when the company is a software itself. So it is in that angle that I see that you will see a lot of organizations, whether it is enterprises or startup organizations, really move towards that digital platforms, create that digital agility, and then definitely rely a lot on IT and IT related stuff. IT and business are two sides of the coin, I would say. So that's how I see this evolving, and very glad to note that across the country, there is a significant amount of understanding of this. How much they have implemented is a different question. But yes, a sense of understanding, somebody said a sense of direction when they invest, right? It's like that. So hopefully, we will see a lot more that we can contribute to kind of change lives across India as well.
Sure. Kailash, what is your take on it? What are the kind of technologies you are excited about, you see a lot of potential in the coming years?
Yeah. So we are a sector agnostic and a stage agnostic VC firm. So for us, I think the set is quite large, but at least let me tell you from a personal point of view and what we are looking to find great founders in. Made specific teams and specific white spaces across sectors. Very bullish about SaaS. I think there are a bunch of white spaces that have opened up both in cloud native technologies as well as I think the entire work environment has changed. So the collaborative work environment is the future. So a bunch of SaaS ops or cybersecurity for that matter, with a lot of workflow going online as well, right? And new age technology like robotics, or we're talking about people collaborating online. So the element of trust, probably blockchain might be an answer to that, but how do you build that element of trust between multiple stakeholders coming together online? Arpit touched upon healthcare. I mean, I come from a sort of healthcare background, so it's something I relate to. But also looking at, I mean, healthcare generally has been a little slow in adopting technology, but I think there's specific spaces within healthcare, I think, which gels well with a technology-led disruption, probably mental health or diagnostics, faster diagnostics, more accurate diagnostics. Bridging the entire demand supply gap. I think that's something that technology gels very, very well with delivering it and taking to 1 billion users. Right? looking at other white spaces and probably a fintech looking for banking the unbanked, right? With Matter, we have also invested in spaces like consumer tech. So how do you make the entire interaction and people coming together who have now access to internet, which was hitherto not possible, right? You talk about metaverse, but keeping all the buzzword aside, right? If you can put people together on a single platform where I can interact with someone in the completely different time zone and can do it in a very seamless fashion, right? Building that entire smooth user experience. And these are the themes that we are looking at. They can be confluence of themes or sort of 2 or 3 different themes coming together. But I think what I'm basically looking at is founders who have the visibility into how to build, who can empathize with the target segment that they are targeting, right? And what is the pain point there, and how can they solve this pain sustainably and build a sustainable business model around that? Unit economics is for sure, like Humphrey said, it's a fundamental premise which won't change even post-COVID. But more than unit economics, also how do you build it in a way that the customer would come back to you repeatedly, right? And how do you do it at the scale? And how do you do it at the scale where it's not a seed investment, but the investor is looking at it from investing in a Series B or a Series C stage, right? How do you do it across timelines, and how do you evolve with the user? I think that's something that is a fundamental question to ask across the tech teams that I spoke about. But I think exciting times. I think tech is becoming a fundamental disruptor across the themes that you would see.
Sure. Swapna, what kind of innovations are you anticipating, and what are the technologies that you are most excited about?
Sure. I think like every other investor on this panel, I wish I had a crystal ball and we could visualize 20 years hence. But I think that's what we're trying to achieve in some ways, trying to look to our entrepreneur's lens, right? So every entrepreneur we speak to and who can actually help us visualize how the world will be 10 years hence and how they're building for that world is an entrepreneur who excites us. And that really sort of puts us in somewhere in the bucket where we are deep tech investors. We want to invest in technologies which will change the way the world is in step function versus in sort of a slope function. And what that means is we are also patient investors. We would wait out 6 to 10 years for that technology and see how it plays. So some of the areas where we are spending a lot of time, of course, the key technology components which are driving all of these are 5G, IoT, edge computing, things we talked about. But sectors or areas which we are bullish about is, for example, video collaboration. Last year has shown us how things have changed, right? So how video collaboration and communication will change over the next 5 to 10 years, and how people communicate will change. That's an area we are focusing on. Gaming, again, lot of it is happening, but again, post-pandemic, we've realized that the world now needs to figure out a way to spend time on alternate options other than usual work and life and other things, right? So gaming is an area we are spending a lot of time. The third area is hardware. Again, hardware are things, small step things which change, which we don't realize is a pain point, but suddenly when something comes, we realize, why didn't I think about it? And it really changes. Maybe it's a dishwasher, as simple as that, but it changes your life, right? So things like that, where we're spending a lot of time to understand what is the next innovation which you didn't think about it, but when it came, you realize, I missed it all my life. So those are some of the areas we're really thinking about hard as to what will change the course of way things are.
Any closing thoughts that any one of you would like to add to what are you expecting, anticipating from the future? Any additional insights? Anyone can go. Yeah.
I think, just for me, I think one of the things which I had spent a lot of time this year was on agri-tech and the potential it has basically. And I've seen that, that has been, taking off really well this year, with what we have seen in the first half of this year, the kind of investments that have gone into agri-tech and the potential for it to kind of scale up for the next big thing, because I think not much has been done in that space. So I see that, there's a lot of opportunity over there. And I'm very excited about blockchain as a technology to solve several problems, not just in one area, but I feel that there is just immense opportunities to solve a lot of problems, even in terms of the cloud and what we are talking about, right? So there's just the way it is exploding, I feel that things are going to be very different in the next couple of years with just the implementation of blockchain as a technology in every vertical that is out there. So I'm pretty excited about that space. Like everyone else, I think health tech has a long way to go. I think it's just getting started. I'm a big believer that there's a lot of change that's going to happen from that aspect.
Sure. Mr. Ranganath, Sonal, any last thoughts, any closing thoughts?
I think just summarizing and agreeing with what everyone else has talked about. Cloud has a role to play, and it's brought compute into various industries that we didn't imagine, whether it's agri or mobility or healthcare or even our day-to-day lives with the appliances we use and so on. So expecting that to continue and take more shape, give more convenience to people and change lives in that sense. But to add to all of that, I think the other dimension from which this is coming is the entire climate and sustainability angle, which is also playing a big role in everything from how we rethink finance to the kind of food that we consume to how we move around cities and how we go to work and so on. So that's starting to become something that we're thinking about quite a bit, and I think it'll be that lens is something that we'll apply to everything that we do going forward. So yeah, as closing thoughts, that's one thing that I wanted to add.
I would like to take this opportunity to tell everyone who is considering starting up to start up, because there's never been a better time to start up. And people who cannot yet take the jump, please join a fast growing startup. There has never been a better time to be a startup employee. ESOPs and wealth creation and salaries are through the roof. So yeah, I think we are now past the inflection point where it is not a question anymore. It's only a question of timing.
Essentially looking at the conversation, couple of highlights that come to my mind. One is the inflection point, as we say, right? The startup organization is really flourishing. HPE in itself is a large startup organization. You'll have to believe when I say we started off with making some oscilloscopes 80 years ago. We made some PCs, we made some phones. So we have always been evolving, and there is an buzzing startup ecosystem. But in the context of the startup ecosystem really growing, there is a new world for them, whether they're selling to businesses, whether they're selling to end customers. Especially if they're selling to big businesses, they will have to look at how those enterprises would want to consume their products, and that's where as a service, as a model really fits in, purely from, using the resources that HP can deliver, right, from technology and other aspects that I spoke of. We are also trying to put together some kind of an offering, which that enables startup organizations to look at the various technology aspirations that they have and how HPE can fulfill that. That's in a few days that we will come out and speak about that. But in all of this, whether it is a startup organization which wants to create, whether it's a startup organization which wants to enhance its creation and grow, I think we can be a trusted partner, and that's part of the changing dynamics of every consumer's buying journey. I would say today they would want trusted partners, they would want best of breed elements. So if you're looking at this evolution of startup organizations, I think we are at the prime time. And request here is, evaluate the options that HPE has. And GreenLake is another name that you should also remember.
So GreenLake is a name to remember, and this is the best time if you want to start up. And if you can't start up, Arpit says that there's great money. Please join a startup.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you everyone for taking out the time and sharing all these great insights with us. I'm sure all of you also enjoyed the conversation as much as I did, and I'm sure that everyone who tuned in it was really helpful for them as well. Thank you once again, and all our audience. Stay safe, take care, and keep reading your story.